If you often find yourself lacking motivation and giving up on things after some time, this video will not motivate you at all.
Well, that's disappointing.
But by the end of this video, you will understand how to motivate yourself at will and have a concrete practice that, if just done once, will increase your motivation for any activity forever, no matter how difficult it feels currently. Let's unpack it.
Can I tell you a secret? I despise motivation. Genuinely, it's the worst. Here's why. Number one, motivation is an emotional state. We feel motivated. And because feelings come and go, they are absolutely unreliable. Number two, consistent action in the long run is the only thing that gets us results. And when we depend on something truly unreliable for doing or not doing something, A, our consistency and results suffer, and B, our ability to achieve goals is now affected or influenced by the external. Imagine a car which only starts when the weather is perfect. Motivation is this car which just starts in such ideal situations and is easily affected by something outside our control. If we rely on such a vehicle, our journey will be slow and inconsistent. But we can bias this weather in our favor and keep the motivation car moving. Here's how.
In 1954, Abraham Maslow, a psychologist, surveyed several researchers on what motivates people. He boiled it down to some basic needs and desires people try to fulfill. This is Maslow's hierarchy. Subsequent research proved that it's not a hierarchy, but rather it can be seen as a pyramid. In simple terms, the higher something is on Maslow's pyramid, the more motivated a person will be to do that activity. So, if there are two projects a person can work on, and one gets him approval of his friends or family, and other makes him learn or understand something, according to Maslow's pyramid, the person would be more motivated in the latter case. Motivation can be divided into intrinsic motivators and extrinsic motivators. The holy grail of motivation is to tap into intrinsic motivation.
External motivations are things like money, approval, or status. If I were to guess, around 90% of the people are relying on external motivators. And I don't think there's anything wrong as such with them. It's just that there's not much power in it. They're like fossil fuels. We run out of them, and thus we cannot always depend on it. Then there are intrinsic or internal motivators. I think it would be more accurate to say that intrinsic motivators inspire us rather than just motivating us. The power, energy, and motivation that internal motivators give us is exponentially more than extrinsic motivators. And they are sustainable resources so that we can always rely on them and reach within for extra motivation. There are 5 intrinsic motivators. The first one is autotelicity, or in simple terms, love. Have you ever noticed that you can play a video game or your favorite musical instrument for hours, but studying for 30 minutes feels like eternity? This is the power of doing something just for the sake of itself. For finding autotelic activities, we can ask ourselves the questions: what are the activities which, when I'm doing, I just lose the track of time? Number two is autonomy or freedom. No one likes being told what to do. This is what autonomy is. How much of an activity is our own true choice and not by compulsion. An activity which is by compulsion in the present can still motivate us if it leads to more autonomy or freedom in the future. A simple example of this is studying for an exam to get into a college that we like. Number three is curiosity. This is my personal favorite. When something just fascinates us and we want to understand how it functions, we can be endlessly motivated to commit our lives to understanding that thing. Number four is mastery. Remember the joy of learning how to ride a cycle? We kept on going despite falling or hurting ourselves. That's the power of mastery in action. It's the pursuit of constant improvement with the intent of mastery in any field. And finally, purpose. Purpose is how what you're doing contributes to something bigger than yourself. Believe it or not, it's one of the greatest motivators of humankind. A person will only go to so much extent in personal interest. But if he's a soldier fighting for his country, you can imagine to what extents he'll go. Now, let's look at how exactly we can apply these internal motivators in our lives to get inhuman amounts of motivation.
The concrete practice, you'll find it in the What's in it for me section at the end of this video. When we look at Maslow's pyramid, the extrinsic motivators are way down at the bottom, whereas intrinsic motivators such as curiosity, mastery, autotelicity or love, and purpose are way up at the top. We can take an activity and put it higher on the Maslow's pyramid to increase its motivation. When Dean Sherman was asked by his 9th grade students that why do we have to study algebra, when are we ever gonna use it, his reply was never. You're never gonna use it. And he followed with, you don't go to the gym because one day some dude will come on the street to check how heavy you can bench. You do that to carry your groceries or lift your grandchildren in future without getting injured. You do maths exercise to increase your ability to think logically in order to become a better lawyer, doctor, architect, etc. Dean Sherman took something as boring and unmotivating as maths and put it up there on Maslow's pyramid to motivate his students. You can do this with literally anything. If suppose your motivation for going to the gym is to gain approval or fit in with your friends, you can change it to gaining mastery over my physical body. We usually get stuck at the basement of Maslow's pyramid and miss out on the power that intrinsic motivators have to offer us. The best part about intrinsic motivators is that because they are intrinsic or internal, we can call upon the motivation they offer at will or by choice. This brings power back into our hands and we don't have to depend on David Goggins to motivate us.
What's in it for me? The goal we're trying to aim for. To be inspired and become self-reliant for lasting change by using intrinsic motivators. The concrete action steps I think would help us reach there. Take a pen and paper and pick something you want to be motivated for. Write it down. Now relate these activities to 3 to 5 of intrinsic motivators. I'll use studying for an entrance exam to get into a specific business school as an example. For curiosity, write down what about this thing or activity or its desired outcome you're curious about or wanna understand. In mastery, write down how doing this activity or reaching its desired outcome would lead to mastery. In autotelicity or love, write down what about this activity you love. If there's nothing, then what about reaching its desired outcome would you love? In autonomy, write down how doing this activity or reaching its desired outcome would lead to more freedom in your life. In purpose, write down how doing this activity or reaching its desired outcome would make you more capable to contributing to a greater good. And finally, summary.
These are just some examples. You can add as many points in each intrinsic motivators as you like. Just try this once and you'll notice your drive and motivation for that thing going through the roof.